Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Top 10, the 11th Lineal Justin and Tyler Movie Awards for 2024, and it is time for the Top 10 Best Movies of 2024. Tyler is going to kick us off, which means I will get the honor of having the final number one pick escape my mouth, and then at the end of the video we will again go over our list of shame, movies that we missed out on in 2024. But Tyler, the floor is yours to get us started.
Yes, thanks. My number 10 is Late Night with the Devil.
Nice. Hey, I'm gonna. You know what? I'm gonna basically call that a consensus, but it's not, because if I'd ended the last video with it and then Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
You done?
Sort of. Almost.
I don't know. I just kind of feel like at this point, and this happens during the movie awards where so much has been talked about regarding certain movies that there's not really much else to say.
Right.
I haven't said a ton about it, but Justin has said a lot that I agree with, so I don't think there's actually much to add. It's not really much in the way of jump scares for a horror movie, which I suppose might turn off some people, but there is a creepy atmosphere to it, but really, I just find it entertaining. It's not something that I wouldn't be like, oh, is it a great horror movie? Nah, I don't know. I don't know that it's necessarily a great horror movie in the way that people approach horror movies, right? But it still is a horror movie. Mm-hmm. But this is immaculate in the other ways. The directing, the acting. While I said that I thought the ending could have been handled better, there is still a kicker at the end that was really effective.
Yeah.
So it kind of made up for it. So ultimately, how it got there for a little bit wasn't really the end of the world. Yeah, this is a fantastic movie. Obviously, it's my number 10.
Mm-hmm.
I had it a little higher, but I called some audibles. I think it suffers a little bit from having seen it so early in the year.
Maybe so. Yeah.
I'm just kind of because I said in my review that this was close to a 9.5, which it probably is, but it's a 9, but which a lot of these movies are. Maybe if I would have rewatched it, it would be higher again, but 10 isn't a bad place to be.
No, definitely not.
And it kicks off the video, so yeah, number 10 is Late Night with the Devil.
Kicking things off from my top 10, my number 10 best movie of 2024 is Nosferatu. So obviously my method and our method of experiencing this movie doesn't exactly do justice to Robert Eggers' visual style, which we talked about before. You still know it's there. You just know that we aren't exactly seeing it at its absolute best version. I thought everybody in this movie was tremendous. I thought the way that it's presented from a storytelling perspective, I think I mentioned this earlier, there was no pull to modernize the way they told the story or the way they performed the story. It's still a Victorian style of dialogue, and again, no real pull to we're gonna bring Nosferatu, the story of Nosferatu, into the 21st century. We're gonna cast Kevin Hart, and we're gonna there's no pull to kind of put it into the modern parlance. It's very much again a Victorian era sort of storytelling. I thought everybody on the performance aspect in this was great, whether it was Willem Dafoe or Aaron Taylor Johnson or Lily Rose Depp or Nicholas Hoult or Bill Skarsgård. I thought all of them performance-wise did very, very well. And Robert Eggers has been inconsistent for me in the past. I didn't love Northman nearly as much as I thought I was going to. This to me is the very best of him. This is probably my favorite Robert Eggers movie. Right. I think I might have to sit down and think about that, but I think this is probably the very best that I've seen from Robert Eggers. So Nosferatu, my number 10 best movie of 2024.
All right. I am gonna bounce off what you said a little bit. So I agree that it's his best movie. You said that he's been inconsistent rather with you. He's been consistent with me. Consistent in the sense that I think the guy shoots beautiful movies and is devoid of any heart or soul, really.
Ooh, interesting. Okay.
I enjoy his movies. I don't think I've ever not enjoyed a movie, even if I'm not especially head over heels, like The Witch. Mm-hmm. It was fine, you know, like they're good movies. I still don't love it. I appreciate his directing. I've given him Best Director nods multiple times, I'm pretty sure. At least once.
Yeah.
And I've said that, his writing always does, I just don't feel anything when I watch his movies besides, look, it's beautiful. And I can appreciate it, and the story of Nosferatu's fine. I do believe on a technical sense it's entertaining. Mm-hmm. I just, it doesn't click with me. His movies don't click with me.
In that way, would you compare him to say an M. Night Shyamalan or something like that, where it's never the direction that's the problem, it's always the writing?
Yeah.
In a different way, obviously.
Yeah, only M. Night, at the very least, the writing is interesting.
Right.
Because it's it might fail miserably, especially with a twist, but it's but he tried. But I understand that people love Nosferatu. So whatever. I 7 out of 10. It's good.
Yeah.
It's good. I just don't feel any real passion towards it. So my number 9 is funny when you consider that I just got done crapping on a real artistic achievement in Nosferatu.
Right.
My number 9 is Sonic the Hedgehog 3.
Yes. Gotta go fast.
You had said something about Jim Carrey kind of handling a lot of the humor, and I actually think he's weak. His performance, I've said this about the other 2 movies, I'm pretty sure, on video. I think his performance in this and the other ones are great. Mm-hmm. I just don't think the material is funny that he's saying. But I think the joy in which he's playing this character is still endearing. Right? To me, the humor is in Knuckles and sometimes Sonic, although he's a little whatever sometimes. And the humor in these the movie's mostly for kids, but I don't think they're the funniest movies, and I think that's really just kind of what holds them back a little bit. But they've gotten better. They've been great ever since the first one. I really like the first one. I really like the second one more, and I actually legitimately love this one. I think these are awesome, legitimate superhero thrill rides. That fight that you mentioned earlier, yeah. Or the way that the movie handles speed is some of the best. Some movies handle speed, as much as I love Zack Snyder, handling the Flash sometimes is a little wonky. But here you feel the speed, it's done in an entertaining way.
Yeah.
I agree with what you said about Shadow. Shadow's story is complex and devastating. And I don't know why these Sonic movies are so good. I was a Sonic diehard as a kid in the Genesis era, and then I pieced out of Sonic almost entirely, so I know enough about the characters up into a certain point to care when I see them, but I don't really remember the lore.
Right.
In fact, I probably never really knew it, because I was just playing Genesis games, being yeah, Sonic and Tails. Oh, Knuckles. But now they're at a point where I don't actually really know the characters. I've seen Shadow before, and I've seen the one, I can't remember her name now, that gets teased at the end. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, I'm excited. I'm sure they'll make a 4th, because they set up a 4th. So
yeah, they definitely set up a 4th one, so...
And I'll be there. I'll be there for it.
With bells on.
Yeah.
My number 9 best movie of 2024 is Robot Dreams.
I knew it was coming.
This Robot Dreams worked for me in a ton of really good ways. And I'm just, once again, I like my critiquer review, so I'm going to read it. Dog is a loner who doesn't really relate to people, and Robot's indelible happiness can't help but make you smile, even as his dreams and circumstances develop this increasing dread for the audience. exploring themes of love, companionship, dealing with trauma and loss, personal growth, and the ability to find enduring meaning and happiness even if it doesn't look like you thought it would. There's a lot to digest here for the entire audience. And yeah, it was, and I understand that this is based off of a really well-selling graphic novel. It built its story in that format and then adapted that onto the screen. And there's a lot of really great work being done under the graphic novel format, right? Like, you know, like literary graphic novels and things like that. There's a lot of great content that's coming out. Has come out over the last few years and continues to. But, I mean, like, this movie was beautiful. Like, it was absolutely gorgeous. Yeah. And gorgeously animated and a gorgeously told story as well. So, Robot Dreams is my number 9.
Yeah, it kind of shows the importance of, like, you know, not all friendships or just relationships in general last forever. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the temporary ones are meaningful, and see, I hate it because it suffers too, just like Late Night with the Devil. If I saw it so early, that I feel like if I would have seen it sooner, or more recently rather, it might be higher on my list, but it has so much time to, like, you know what I mean? That's like what I hate about Woods. But it's still a fantastic movie. It didn't, like, diminish my love. It's just fresher movies sometimes.
Yeah, there's definitely a recency bias, and, like, you know, time in that sense, in this sense, is a double-edged sword, because sometimes when movies have that time to set in, obviously we use the term a lot. It aged well with me, and sometimes it ages well and it ascends up your list. But it seems like more often than not, it will kind of make a movie slide down a little bit more, because recency bias is a powerful freaking thing to try to get over. Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, because now that I'm thinking about it, I remember going to work and actually talking about this movie after I saw it, which I don't do with most movies, because most people don't want to talk to you about movies. Like, you know, it's just whatever. But, no, it's a great movie. I'm glad you found a lot from it. Mm-hmm. My number 8 is Conclave.
Wow, very nice.
Man, what we've said everything?
Probably. Probably so, yes.
Maybe just like run the hits. We'll just play the hits, I guess.
Play it back.
Ralph Fiennes, fantastic. Directing with especially its usage of color, but also like space and whatever, fantastic. Mm-hmm. The twist I actually ended up loving. It wrestles with the heaviness of God in a way, because there's really not like... like philosophically or whatever, maybe it's probably not a heavier thing than wrestling with the idea of God, if, like, you know, if you believe God exists. Mm-hmm. And it deals with that. Ralph Fiennes deals with that really well, and then it also has the backroom politics that you talked about a bunch, which is like a pretty compelling, like, thriller in its own way. Mm-hmm. And yeah, this movie's special. Not something you put on when you just want to have some fun, but something you put on when you want to sink your teeth into something, like, with real depth. Yeah,
not a light, fluffy weekend watch. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, there's a lot of gravitas to everything that's going on, of course, because there's you know, within the highest levels of the church, there is, you know, the grandiosity of the whole religion, right? So you do see a lot of that, but then you also see, like, the nitty gritty, like, backroom, like you say, the backroom politics of it all, of somebody essentially trying to steal the papacy. Yeah. So it's, you know, it's not, there's not no stakes in this. My number 8 best movie of 2024 is Sean Baker's Anora. Man, did I ever have fun with this. This started off so strong with me. The opening scene of, like,
boobies?
Marquee scrolling lap dances set to the song Greatest Day by Take That. I was just like, I'm in right from the very beginning of this. And like, this was such an interesting exploration of like there's cultural commentary here on a couple of different levels, right? There's the cultural commentary on the culture of, well, Jersey, basically. There's cultural commentary, like, within stripper culture. There's the culture, like, the commentary of, like, Russian culture and oligarchical culture and the family culture. And this is, like, this movie, it really depthly blends like hedonist party fantasy with family dramedy, mix it with some softcore porn. Like, there's this may actually be deserving of the tired old, hey guys, there's something for everyone in this movie. Like, well, maybe not the kids. Maybe keep the kids away from this one. But other than that, if you're not a kid, there might be something for literally everybody in this movie. Plus, again, one of what I think is the absolute best performances of the year at the lead of this. Honora, man, my number 8 best movie of 2024. One of the big surprises of the year for me, for sure.
Yeah, I imagine this will probably be seen as Sean Baker's best movie. Who knows? Maybe he'll never make a better one to people. I still think it's the Ford Project, but I can see the appeal here. Obviously, I think it was just an honorable mention for me, but it was also an 8 out of 10. So I mean, whatever.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good pick. My number 7 is The Fall Guy.
Ooh.
I spoke about how movies early in the year might not exactly benefit from how early I see them, but The Fall Guy held on.
Yeah.
I'm still very fond of this movie, even though there's really not that much to say about it besides, like, it's a love letter to stunt men and women, and that's great. It's a good action movie in its own right. Mm-hmm. It's impossible for Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt not to have chemistry with each other. I considered Ryan Gosling for Best Actor this year, but...
You gave him Best Actor mid-year.
Oh, at mid-year. Yeah, mid-year I did. Yeah, I took him out, I think. Yeah, I didn't mention him at all, did I? Or did I mention him? Maybe he was honorable mention. Or maybe he was in it. Maybe, whatever. Doesn't matter.
It was so long ago, yesterday.
Yeah, I think I might have given him something. But anyway, whatever. It's good. It's a good performance. It's fun. I like it. I like old Ryan Gosling a lot, actually. He's one of my favorite actors.
Right.
So my number 7 is The Fall Guy.
My number 7 best movie of 2024 is Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
That's high.
And that is definitely high. Because again, we talked about it in an earlier video where it was just like, man, I don't really know how to feel because I love that Caesar trilogy so much. And like, there's no way this is going to live up to that. I think it actually mostly did. Like, it's not as good as the highest highs of the Caesar trilogy. But we talked earlier about how there's so many levels of meaning and metaphor in this movie, and there's the whole movie's like a daisy chain of these beautiful moments, whether they're there's some more subdued one to these just like big, gorgeous set pieces and whatever. And I don't understand that a lot of that is CGI, but that's fine. They did a good job with it still, whether it's computer generated or not. And one thing I wanted to point out too is there was actually there were 2 very difficult performance cuts for me that came out of this movie. And it was Owen Teague, who plays the main ape, and Freya Allen, who plays the girl. And Freya Allen especially was like a very difficult cut from Best Actress because a lot of the early part of her performance is nonverbal. So all of it has to be with her face and her body language and everything. And one of what I really love about these movies is how all 4 of them have offered us a mirror through which we can view our own humanity. And like, these Apes movies are just so damn good. And if they're gonna stay at this quality, boys, keep going back to the well. Like, you just keep going back to the well and keep banging out movies that are of this quality, and I'm gonna be there every single time. So Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, my number 7 best movie of 2024.
You love that shit. My number 6 is Challengers.
Wow, you love yourself this Luca Guadagnino boy.
I thought about rewatching Challengers. That's how much I love it. Wasn't really. I wasn't expecting to at all. Mm-hmm. I've said this, but I don't really care for Luca Guadagnino. I like Zendaya a lot. I don't really know much about the two guys so much.
No, me either.
But like Zendaya, I actually straight up I watched her for Zendaya. Just that's it, because she gets crapped on by some people, mostly for her looks. because they're like, you always see the like, this is like an actress, like model, whatever, and then here's your girl at McDonald's, and like the girl at McDonald's is hotter. Like, I don't think Zendaya is the most beautiful woman on the planet, but she's obviously pretty. Like, so shut up.
Right.
But it doesn't even matter. I don't gotta defend her.
Those people are jealous that she's sleeping with Spider-Man.
Yeah. Engaged to Spider-Man.
Yes, hey, congrats. We know you'll watch.
Yeah, exactly. No, but I think Zendaya is a really talented actress.
Very.
I've given her nods. I think only maybe one. What I got was a movie with just an absolute banger of a soundtrack. Just pounding, man. You don't miss it.
Reznor and Ross are so good.
They are. Like, when the tennis is happening, you hear that kind of main theme playing. There's a couple different versions of it, but you hear it, and it's just like, this is so exciting. Like, a minor criticism is maybe some shots go on a little too long, but then the payoff to them is so friggin' good that I don't even care. You know, obviously it's like a rom-com / sports movie, but they're in love with tennis, not with each other.
Right.
And you had said something about you not leaning into the drama of it. And, I mean, I've said this before about Luca Guadagnino is like, I think he knows how silly it is anyway, so I don't think approaching it the way you did is hard. Like, so I've said that if he's completely serious about all this, then it's kind of like, buddy. Like, we kind of all think it's a little silly. And I don't think it's like silly in a bad way. I just think like the fact that they're so obsessed with tennis is like endearing, but also like it's pretty silly.
Right.
So I didn't end up rewatching it, but that's how much, like, I only rewatch the movies that are in serious contention for number one.
Right.
That's the only time I generally rewatch movies. If it's like, this might be a number one movie. So the fact that I considered rewatching Challengers, that should say something.
My number 6 best movie of 2024 is the third foray into the universe of Art the Clown. That is Terrifier 3.
Yes, he's on board, boys.
Yeah, I'm very on board. Julia, I told you to stay out of my Man, okay, so when this happened, like, I kind of knew what was gonna come, but just like, okay, cool, he's gonna go in there, and that's gonna happen, but then the commentary over the top of it's just like, oh, I'm disgusted with myself that I watched this. And I'm like, oh, I'm so in. I don't know what to think. But oh man, I like you have to give yourself to the incredibleness of this whole, not only of the character of Art, but the whole like universe within which Art exists. Like it's I will say this as a not a criticism, but as a complete aside. If a Terrifier Christmas doesn't win some kind of award somewhere, I briefly thought of making an award that I could give a Terrifier Christmas to.
It's a Terrifier Christmas.
Like, if that doesn't win some kind of, that should be nominated for Best Original Song. It really should. Yeah, so Art, I'm going to read a little bit from my review here.
Bro.
Art the Clown delivers the greatest Christmas gift of all, a delicious and heinous holiday slasher classic. Art's gotcha face cracks me up every single time. I just love this big, goofy, malicious bastard. This is my first foray into the Terrifier verse, so I can't hold it up against the first two. Regardless, this gave me exactly what I wanted. And that's exactly what I wanted or maybe feared was the correct, because I don't know what these movies are going to bring out in me as a movie fan and a human being, but I'm willing to find out. I'm right there with Terrifier 3 as my number 6 best movie of 2024.
So you never ended up watching the other two?
No.
Now, see, 2 would have been important.
Yeah.
I mean, one's sort of important because. But all right.
I still have enough of the story that going into 3, I kind of knew where we'd been, but I still haven't experienced the whole thing as a movie from start to finish.
Welcome aboard the Terrifier ride.
Can I at least get a seat in the back so not everybody sees me here? Did you start to sweat that we were getting this late into the list?
I forgot.
Oh.
Terrifier has this weird habit of being forgotten about.
Right.
Like, not so much for me because I'm the one who's represented it up until now, but for you, it's been like, oh, I forgot about Terrifier. Even at the end, it's like, oh, I forgot about Terrifier.
Right.
It's like today, and then I forgot about Terrifier today. Like, I didn't even register that you had not mentioned it, which is how you felt about me a couple years ago.
It sits in the back of your subconscious waiting to strike.
It's like endlessly gifable. Like, I'm always posting gifs on
yeah.
Discord of Art the Clown. Yeah, I'm glad you like it. Alright, so to open up the top 5, I am going with Watchmen. I think you're wrong and dumb.
That sounds about right.
See ya.
That's par for the course. Ladies and gentlemen, Rorschach.
No, I circled, like, I wrote down, because I wanted to respond to you, but I was kind of waiting until now, the Watchmen mystery not being compelling to you.
Mm-hmm.
I've known you for a long time. You know, you have a place in my heart. But what the fuck? Dude, that is one of the most compelling, like, mysteries, and it's, like, I know what's coming. And I still am intrigued by it. Like, and the ending. Like, I know this is coming. Do you think I'd reveal my masterstroke if there was even the slightest chance you could stop it? I did it 35 minutes ago.
Right.
Oh my god, man. I know it's coming, but it hits every time. But yeah, besides my hatred of you.
Right.
I just think, like, the animation's great. I think this is a great adaptation, the way it works in the Black Freighter stuff, which is not my favorite part of Watchmen, but I know it's thematically rich. When Dr. Manhattan says that he has regained his faith in humanity and everything kind of zooms out and you see everything, I'm like, I think there's so many fantastic scenes. Watchmen is one of the great comics of all time. It's like cliche as it is, because like anyone who reads comics knows Watchmen, so it kind of gets that like FF7 treatment, I think,
right,
sometimes, where it's like, no, it is as good as people think. And it's not cool to be like, yo, my favorite comic or / graphic novel is Watchmen, but it's like, it's also totally legitimate to feel that way. I don't know, like, this gave me everything I wanted from Watchmen. So, yeah, my number 5 is Watchmen.
Yeah. I mean, look, the animation is undeniably, like, it's fantastic. That's the strength of the movie to me.
Yeah, I'm just sad for you mostly. Because like I'm thinking about it, like Rorschach, Dr. Manhattan, like the comedian, like just all these characters are so great for different reasons. And I'm sad for you that you didn't find the love.
Yeah.
But you still liked it.
No, yeah, absolutely. I still dug it.
I was
definitely not on that level. My number 5 best movie of 2024 is Deadpool and Wolverine. So this movie, again, I said earlier that, you know, Deadpool's kind of the captain of consistency, because there's now like 3 great movies.
Yeah.
All 3 of them great. And look, I could sit here and maybe nitpick some internal logic inconsistencies or blah, 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 but really what it comes down to is this. Does this movie not give you exactly what you want from this movie? Snappy dialogue, big action. I feel like the movie gives you exactly what you would expect and want from a Deadpool movie. It seems to check every single box of anything. Like, if you really sit down and think, like, what would somebody want from a Deadpool movie? I feel like this movie does actually check basically every box that you could want from a Deadpool movie. Yeah, I saw people that kind of criticized that there was no Cable or that there was no Domino, and yeah, their absences were noted.
It had Wolverine.
Exactly. Like it had a big thing. And you know, it's laden with a bunch of other, like, you had Gambit in this movie, damn it.
Yeah.
Like you had so many cameos in this movie that, yeah, sure, you didn't have Cable and you didn't have Domino, and they were characters that people loved from the last one.
Yeah.
So like, okay, I get that they're not there, but like that didn't exactly tank my enjoyment of this movie in any way whatsoever, because I'm sure we're gonna get more with them down the line. Did I need them in this movie? Definitely not. Not with the way the movie was otherwise filled out. So yeah, it's my number 5 because I expected high things from it, and it gave me exactly what I expected from it.
I never really saw any criticisms or.
I never saw the movie.
I just didn't really pay much attention to the criticisms or anything of this movie. So I didn't see the Cable and Domino thing. Yeah, it would have been nice to have them in there. They were good characters.
Sure.
But I couldn't imagine watching this, seeing all those characters and being like, just really needed Cable and Domino. I'm like, it has Wolverine in it. It's a main character,
right?
That's like, as a serious criticism, I find that incredibly lame. As like just kind of a general statement, like a kind of like, yeah, it would have been cool to have Cable and Domino. Then I can understand that. Yeah, it would have been cool.
Sure.
Right? You know what I mean? You understand? Like the difference there is like, should have had Cable and Domino, blah 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 blah. Versus, yeah, it would have been neat. My number 4 best movie of the year is The Bike Riders.
Wow.
I did rewatch this one because I'm going to be completely honest with you now. I had probably the most difficult time of my life coming up with my top movie of the year. Like wait, was John Wick Chapter 4 last year? Yeah, it was last year, right?
Yeah.
That year I had 4 or 5 movies in contention. But then once I rewatched John Wick, I was like, this is the one.
It's done. The jam is done.
This is the jam. It's not there. So I was like able to kind of be like, okay, cool. I still do not know what my top movie of the year is. And I don't think The Bike Riders deserves number 1. But I love this movie. You mentioned male bonding. Yeah, I was going to say more generally, I think it actually deals with masculinity and as a whole in a way that's honest. And not always pretty. And this is what people don't get on the sides. Because like this stuff is really important to me, because when I got into psychology and whatnot, it was very much like a man and woman. Like that's the kind of stuff that interests me. Like the differences and the similarities in a way. Femininity and masculinity. The good and bad of those, right? Like there is a male bonding aspect to this that is actually really beautiful. Like the idea of like these guys having like kind of this hobby, like bikes and their little gang is like a positive thing, all right? The stuff they do sometimes is not a positive thing, right? But their friendship is very strong. So that was probably the most interesting part of the movie for me. But I pretty much just echo everything you say. The performances are great, though I don't think any individual one is good enough to be considered.
Right.
Yeah, fantastic. Like I love Tom Hardy, and Austin Butler's winning me over. Like I don't have a lot of experience with him, because like I didn't see some of the movies that he was like super fantastic in that you've shown him up for, like Elvis, right? He was out. Like I didn't see that. He's winning. He's getting on the board for me, right? I like his performance, even though it's not super deep. I like what he got going on, the look for it and the mannerisms and whatever. Tom Hardy's like a friggin' master. I wish there was even more Tom Hardy in this. Yeah, it held up on a second watch. I probably even appreciated a little bit more on the second watch. Yeah, I guess I don't really have that much else to say about it. It doesn't seem like, I'm not saying a ton about it, but Jeff Nichols, man, I'm always gonna be excited for his movies, unless it's like absolutely a premise that I despise.
Right.
Which he hasn't done yet. So,
let's hope he doesn't do that.
This is his best movie since Shotgun Stories.
My number 4 best movie of 2024 is Monkey Man. Held on for the vast majority of the year to be one of my top 5 movies of the year. I have spoken about Monkey Man, every angle of Monkey Man at length between the mid-years and the videos that we've already filmed yesterday and today. I think Dev Patel accomplished something incredibly, accomplished something brilliant with this movie. I really, really do. I would love to see another foray into this universe, like we talked about before. I don't know whether there's enough legs there to do that, but if not, then this can always just sit as, this one-off movie, which was tremendous accomplishment by one person in front of and behind the camera. I love the acting job that he did. I love the directing job that he did. And this movie has sat with me the vast majority of this year. So Monkey Man's number 4. I won't continue to re-chew my cud.
I don't have anything to add to this. I've said I didn't get quite as much out of this as you, obviously. But I do like it. Mm-hmm. Try not to be negative in the top 10s, you know? Because even though we have, like, some disagreements here. But that's okay. I'm glad. It doesn't matter. I'm glad you... And I don't hate this movie. Like, if I hated it, then I would poo on it. But I don't hate this. I like it. I appreciate it.
Transgender Indian warrior monks. We're in top 3 territory now.
Yeah.
No more messing around.
No, we ain't messing around. So I'm going to jump right into my number 3. Are you ready for this? It is Aggro Drift.
Wow.
Boys. He's wrong.
Wow.
He predicted it. It could have been it. I'm still not sure that it isn't.
So yes, full disclosure, my choice for his number 1, prior to when we started recording anything, was Aggro Drift. I could have gone in a couple of different directions. I think the Bike Riders was even kind of on my radar to go there, so I was kind of close on that one too. But I went with Aggro Drift, and your boy was wrong.
I have so many notes about this movie, but I'm going to try to just go through this. Mm-hmm. So I'll probably miss a whole bunch of stuff that I originally wanted to say, but I don't want to spend too much time on it. I can understand why people wouldn't like this. I think that some of the stuff people would hate about it is actually very deliberate and thematically rich. I don't usually say thematically rich about Korean movies because he generally just he just kind of likes to do like a place and time. Like he described, I think it was Spring Breakers as like his attempt to make like a movie about the Great American Parking Lot or something. Right. Like he uses the word, you use the word, he finds a vibe, right? And this movie is all vibes. It's weird because like Spring Breakers and The Beach Bum are his 2 most mainstream movies, and then what does he do after that? An infrared movie.
Right.
I think this movie is a few different things, and I think it's basically a battle like heaven and hell in a sense. I believe that it's like depression and rumination, and like in such the way that like people constantly repeat lines.
Yes.
Right? And like the I can't remember the dude, but the main villain, he's like walking around saying cringy, silly stuff and doing like which has become a joke with us now. I think he represents that. I think it's like both a satire and Korean embracing Miami culture, which he does. Like Spring Breakers is also satire, but also like a legitimate love for it at the same time. And I think this is just like that. It's like a redemption story for an assassin in a sense, but that's more like the on the surface stuff. Somebody described the use of AI as uncanny and unreal, and I think that also leans into how this is like a hellish landscape of otherworldly, like, nonsense in a sense. I watched this movie. I watched the movies 3 times, the number 1 movies, and I'm still unable to decide what I really want to be number 1. Like, I thought deeply about this movie, which is very strange, because like I said, I don't think deeply about Korean movies. I don't think this gets enough credit because it is so ridiculous. Mm-hmm. Like the way they talk is cringy. It's like, right. I'm the world's greatest assassin. I am the world's greatest assassin. And they're killing somebody and they're just cursing like vulgarities. But when you look at it as like a hellscape, like there's a literal demon that shows up, then I think it makes a lot of sense. Because like when you see a movie like, you know, an Exorcist movie, and what does the demon do? Says a whole bunch of vulgar shit.
Right.
Well, like it's no different than here. Right? It's just not in the context of like a demon, like literally. Although there is a demon, literally.
Right.
I don't think the movie gets enough credit for what it's saying. I can understand people not liking it, but I don't think it gets enough credit. So I guess that's good enough. I think I hit most. Oh, one thing, the soundtrack slaps. The soundtrack is so good, and it like never ends. It's like It's like a music video.
Right. Yes. You know what? Describing it as like an elongated music video. Yeah. I can totally see that.
I think he's embracing it and making fun of it at the same time.
Right.
And that's what I like about Kareen. And yeah, so that's why Aggro Drift is number 3. It could easily be number 1. It could be number 2. What probably hurts it is that like nobody really talked to me about Aggro Drift, like, so it didn't stay in my mind as much.
My number 3 best movie of 2024 is Godzilla -1 Color. I feel like it's very easy to forget in the early going of this movie that you're watching a Godzilla movie.
Oh yeah.
Because like the opening, whatever it is, half hour, 40 minutes, whatever it is just like you get lost in this really investment-worthy story of like the rebuilding of post-war Japan and this domestic drama. Like you get so invested in this, and then at a certain point you remember, oh my god, this is a Godzilla movie. and then what such a Godzilla movie it is. I don't know if this is always an intentional thing, but it feels like Godzilla movies have like a Stanley Kubrick signature style type of thing. Like, feels like every Godzilla movie I've ever watched has a climactic scene on a train. Like, I feel like there's been literally like half a dozen of them now, where there's some scene that's taking place on a train with a lady looking out the window and just seeing Godzilla and just being like, ah! I feel like it's literally happened like a half dozen times now. Like a climactic Kubrick scene in a bathroom. Like, it's just a signature scene that has to be in Godzilla movies. And having waited the extra amount of time to be able to see this in black and white, as you mentioned earlier, I think seeing it in black and white just gives an added layer of narrative and beauty, and it adds an interesting and compelling element to the story. And this movie is beautiful in black and white. I'm sure it was wonderful in color, but it is stunning in black and white. So Godzilla -1 Color, my number 3 best movie of 2024.
Yeah, it hits the Godzilla vibe. Mm-hmm. Makes you wait for Godzilla to show up, like Godzilla, the original movie, did.
Yeah.
So, yeah, great. It's a great movie. All right, my number 2 best movie of the year is Terrifier 3.
Ooh, okay.
I'll explain why I decided to put this number 2 in my next pick, if I remember. If I don't, remind me.
I will.
Yeah. Okay, I think Terrifier 3 is like a very minor step back from 2. Just like it's a teensiest in some ways. In some ways it's a step up. Like directing, on technical, like Lauren Rivera and directing and all that, and I think that's all fantastic and an upgrade. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's just because like I came to Terrifier with Terrifier 2, so it kind of was like the most magical, but there was like a vagueness to the story that a lot of it gets explained here, which I like the way the story unfolds. I love that, like, they're embracing the fun of Art the Clown more with this, but also kind of making it grittier, but like with the Christmas stuff and, you know, mm-hmm. Terrifier Christmas and whatnot, and I do like it. I fear I don't want them to go too far into that though.
Right.
Like he was hilarious in 2 as well, but I still think that the bedroom scene in 2 is more demonic and disgusting and whatever than anything in this. Although I am really grossed out by the rat part, but that's just like a me preference. That kill grosses me out, but the bedroom scene in 2 is so disturbing, and like obviously the equivalent here is supposed to be the shower scene, and it's great. Like, it's a fantastic scene. I don't think it hits the levels of 2 greatest kill, but the narrative continues to be rich. Lauren Rivera puts in her best performance as Sienna. I guess she only had 2, but still. Art the Clown is still Art the Clown, which is obviously the best part. Mm-hmm. When he sees Santa and he's walking by, yeah, I don't got to do the big spiel about Terrifier as I did with Terrifier 2 because it's really not as much of an experience this time around because I know what I was getting into.
Right.
There is a moment, like, when I first watched it, I was like, oh god, here we go, like, I'm just gonna be so gross, I'm gonna be so disturbed, and then after about 10, 15 minutes, you're kind of like, okay, I'm back in the mindset, like, it's not that bad, right, like, it's gross, but it's not that bad, but the opening is awesome, it's very atmospheric, and gross, even though, like, you don't see a lot.
Right.
When he's, like, chopping up the kid, the sounds...
Yeah.
That's brutal.
It is.
And Damien Leone seemed to understand this. Like there's some controversy in some of the narrative choices. Mm-hmm. Like not seeing Jonathan get killed, like Sienna's brother.
Right.
And some like stuff like that. But I liked it because it was like, oh shit, because it kind of led to the surprise of it, and kind of gives him a way to bring Jonathan back, even though Leone says that he is dead. But I mean, they're going to hell. Like, if I was rating Terrifier 2 a 10 out of 10, in context of, like, horror movies, I would definitely give it a 10 out of 10. As a favorite movie, maybe, yeah. But I would give Terrifier 3, like a 9.8, 9.9.
Right.
Like, it's a minor, like, a very minor, almost non-existent step back. But I still love it to death, and I imagine I will watch that, again one day, which is kind of why I put it above Aggro Drift, because I don't know that I'll watch Aggro Drift again.
Right. Ladies and gentlemen.
Boys and girls.
Here is where my friend here gets to find out if he was right. I got 2 movies left.
And I know what they are.
I got number 2 and I got number 1. He knows which ones they are. So there's no suspense left for him. There's could be suspense for you, because you might not know. He, however, knows. But here's where he gets to find out if his prediction was correct. Do you want to let them know which one you predicted? Or do you want...
No, yeah, right. Not? I had to think. No.
All right.
Okay, yeah, you want me to tell him?
Might as well.
I'll tell him.
Okay.
Hundreds of Beavers.
So that's what he predicted my number 1 would be. And you'll notice I have not said those words in these videos yet. So he knows it's still on the board. And there's one other movie.
He's really building this up.
I am. I'm taking my time. I'm milking this.
I'll come back when this is done. You let me know. You let me know. I'm gonna make a sandwich.
27 minutes of just like, here we go.
Here it is, boys. He doesn't know, but maybe he knows.
My number 2 best movie of 2024 is Dune Part 2.
Sweet, I was right.
So we did get a little bit ahead of ourselves, but that's okay. Dune Part 2 is my number 2. I've talked about this movie at length. I think it's a masterpiece in the genre. I think Denis Villeneuve is a genius. I love what Timothée Chalamet has done with the Paul Atreides character. I love what Zendaya has done, especially in this movie. Like as you mentioned, she wasn't featured a ton in number 1, but in this second one, she's given a lot more material to work with, and is showing that she's more than capable of it. And then, of course, in a movie like Challenger, showed that she's capable of essentially carrying a movie. What Rebecca Ferguson has done, obviously, I gave her a lot of love earlier in the People portion, and I can't wait to see where the rest of this story is going. I'm not really gonna, go back over and relitigate this movie, and other than to say, I don't think there's an element of this movie that I would change. Right. And I've thought about that. And I thought about it with the first one too, and I'm like, what would I change? What would I do differently? Like, would I position something differently? The only thing that the only decision I may have changed was not to kill off Harkonnen's son, to not kill like Austin Butler's
Right.
character. Probably wouldn't have killed him off because he seems like a compelling character that you could do more things with. So I guess maybe I wouldn't. So there you go. There's that would have been my one thing I would change to make a movie better. It would have been 100 out of 100. And it would have gotten it would have gotten number one. It's an incredible film. It's an incredible franchise. I can't wait for the third one. And Dune Part 2 is my number 2.
All right. So is Dune the greatest thing Denis Villeneuve has ever done? Or Dune Part 2, or just both, whatever.
If we're taking both together, I have to say yes.
But no, what if we don't?
If we do them individually, boy, Blade Runner is so good. It's
Yes,
so
it is.
fantastic. And Prisoners is so wonderful. I think I will probably say yes based on personal preference, even though I think the technical achievement in Blade Runner is probably should be enough to put it number one. But I think on personal preference and bias, I would probably I'll say Dune because I just like it more.
Yeah, fair enough. I think Dune Part 2 is better than the first. I still don't love these movies. There was a point in the movie though where it kicked it up for me, and I started to think like, okay, this is like great, like low key great, not great, but like I was like, this is great, but it was at least like 3/4 of the way through the movie where I thought it really kicked it up, and I was like, oh, so hopefully the third part is like that, because then it might actually get on the board for me. Which would be nice, because then I can share some of the love of Dune. I just kind of feel like they're good movies, and I'm just kind of waiting for Denis to go back to go do something else. I kind of felt in my heart of hearts you were gonna go Dune on this as number one, but that's okay. All right, so let's move on to my number one, and will you tell them what my number one is?
Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah. Okay. I hate this pick because it's boring, man. Like, Terrifier 3 would have been kind of boring too, but it's a less known movie. Edgar Drift obviously would have been the funnest pick just for maybe the audience, although it's not so surprising. Here, I'll tell you why I put Deadpool and Wolverine over the other two that are quite frankly still fighting for number one.
Right.
Like, no, let me in. It's fun, it's easy to digest, but I think the reason is I think this kind of harkens back to something I said about action movies in general, that if you put like really good action sequences in, I'm forgiving of things. Now, there's not really much to forgive about Deadpool and Wolverine, but I think the action sequences are astounding in this. In a way that the other two weren't. Like, Deadpool 1 was mostly a comedy, and they didn't have as much of a budget, and they made fun of that, and the action was like fine, but it wasn't why I was there. 2 was an increase in the action, but less comedy, less effective comedy, but still great, obviously. This, I think they just kind of hit it. Like, it's really funny, and there's heart in it, with Wolverine especially, but even Deadpool. But it's the action. Like, yeah, okay. Deadpool and Wolverine effectively will not die fighting each other, right? So they can just pound it out.
Yeah.
And that might be boring to some people, but the fight in the car is fantastic.
Yeah.
But I love the fight with all the Deadpools. I have watched that scene many times. Just that scene. I put it on with the usage of the music, even the way it's set up. Like, they're going crazy, and they kill Nice Pool, I think, or whatever. They're like shooting, and then like Wolverine just picks up Dog Pool and just casually strolls across. Like, hold up, and he just walks across with Dog Pool and stuff. And then the action, the carnage starts when they push him off screen, and when they come back, Deadpool's like got Wolverine's leg, and he's like pushing him forward.
Right.
Like, I love that scene so much. So like when I think about those scenes, there might be like a higher high for me than like Terrifier 3 in that regard, right? So I think that's why I ended up putting Deadpool and Wolverine over it, because I thought of the action scenes, and I was like, yeah, I think that's what does it. But really, it's just It's a fantastic Deadpool movie. I mean, I have a Deadpool hat that I don't really wear much anymore. Yeah, and then adding Wolverine in a compelling arc, and the villain she's a great villain.
Yeah, she was good.
Like, the flippancy in which she just manhandles people. Like, I think it was when she makes, I think Wolverine stab himself. Mm-hmm. And she just goes, like, no, like, care whatsoever. Like, she just, because she's so powerful, right? That she doesn't give a shit. Mm-hmm. And I liked her a lot. Obviously, seeing Tatum as Gambit was fun. Like, oh, you don't know how long I've been waiting for this. Like, the meme.
Ooh, I'm gonna make a name for myself off of this now.
Yeah. This is like one of the all-time great superhero movies, and y'all know, you know I love me my superhero movies.
True.
So, probably as time goes on, Deadpool and Wolverine will probably be the movie of these three that I look most fondly on, because it's just a thrill. It's just fun, man. Just so much fun. And I have no real complaints towards it. Like, with the other two, I might have like a little dig here and there, right?
Right.
Kind of like you in Dune Part 2. Right? I'm kind of like, okay, but then maybe this, right? Maybe this is not... Like, Deadpool and Wolverine, I actually don't have any. Mm-hmm. I thought I did on the first watch, but then when I rewatched, I was like, nah, not an issue. The indie movie that could.
It's true. Yeah, absolutely. They just drug it around from theater to theater, just hoping to take off. Yeah. All right, so the climactic moment is well behind us, but my number one best movie of 2024 is Hundreds of Beavers. And so I actually did rewatch Hundreds of Beavers. Yes. Because I wanted to.
I remember you saying you would.
Yeah. And it was really in the decision-making process of trying to say, are you actually going to do this?
Yeah.
Right?
I know that feeling. So
right? And so it's like, and maybe this speaks to the fact that maybe we just take this a teensy bit too seriously.
We do, because there's no difference really between like 1 and 2.
Right.
And in my case, 1 and 3. Well, there's like, you know what I mean? There's like no real difference. You just gotta number them.
Absolutely. And honestly, there was a hot minute where Godzilla -1 minus color could have come in and stolen it too. Because man, did that movie ever hit like a ton of bricks.
That would have surprised me. That would have been a fun pick, but not the honest one.
Right, exactly. But I was like, you know what? Ultimately, this really does come down to 2. It's the biggest movie of the year and arguably the smallest movie of the year. It's like, which direction am I going to go here? And I had to be honest with myself and say, like, okay, in 10 years, we know which one of these 2 movies is going to, mean the most to, popular conversation. But which one was the experience? Like, which one gave you an experience that absolutely, positively nothing else that you saw, or maybe have ever seen, could give you? And the answer was Hundreds of Beavers, because it was a movie that, again, as much as I've said it shouldn't work, and maybe that sounds derisive, like, as a concept, it probably shouldn't. It probably should have stayed somebody's little passion project that they showed at some festivals, and maybe that's it. But it didn't. It kept going, and the people got behind it and stayed passionate about it over the course of months and months and months of just the traveling circus that still is Hundreds of Beavers. As I watched that movie, as I started watching that movie, I'm like, what is this? What's happening right now? Like, is this? Do I have the right file? Like, is this just like is this just a torrent of something that somebody filmed in their basement and they're calling this movie that, whatever? And as it kept going, I'm just like, no, this is, not only is this what it's supposed to be, but this is something entirely different than you have ever experienced before. And this is going to give you so many different things that you would have never expected when you started watching this movie. And so the one that will stick with me, I think, not the longest, but the most, while it's with me is Hundreds of Beavers. So Hundreds of Beavers belongs in my number one spot, despite the fact that obviously, you know, I think Dune is going to be one of the great trilogies of my lifetime and all those great things. And Dune Part 2 is one of the great movies of this year, obviously. But ultimately, when it came right down to it, those stupid beaver suits, man. That was the one that was undeniable for me this year. So, Hundreds of Beavers, my number one. Best movie of 2024, as Tyler predicted yesterday morning.
Yeah, Hundreds of Beavers I would say is probably the second most unique movie I've seen this year. I would say Arrow Drift is more unique, but Hundreds of Beavers is in that conversation, and the creativity is, as I've said, it's just ridiculous. Mm-hmm. Just absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, I probably wouldn't have predicted it had you not told me at the mid-years that you were going to rewatch it. I probably would have just went with Dune. Right. But I was like, oh, he's going to rewatch. He might go with Hundreds of Beavers. Mm. And you did. And that's cool.
And the plan certainly was to rewatch Dune again a fourth time. I mean, like, I watched that movie in theaters 3 times. Yeah. So, like, yeah, Dune would have been the totally credible choice, but you sat there, you took your time, you sussed it out, and you made the right call. So there you have it, folks. 2 entirely similar, basically the same movie. Deadpool and Wolverine and Hundreds of Beavers take home the top spots as our number 1 best movies of 2024. So now, ladies and gentlemen, there's nothing left but the crying. We talk about our list of shame. Our movies that, you know, are significant movies or noteworthy movies that we did not get a chance to see in 2024. It's where we accept our virtual depantsing and allow people who were big fans of particular movies to rail against us because we didn't give their movie the time of day. So oh my God, I have a list here of, I would say my list here is 20 at least, but I'll highlight the ones that I think are probably the biggest misses, I guess I would say. Yeah. The Wild Robot. The Wild Robot is in fact the one that I started. When I mentioned I started one.
That one sucks.
And I ran it for about 15 minutes, and I said, you know what? I think this is going to be wonderful, but I can't get into it. I just can't.
That's worth being on the list.
Right? So I stopped it, and I had no time. I had no time. So yeah, The Wild Robot is certainly the big miss for me. I'm gonna put The Brutalist on there, even though there was no way to see it.
Yeah, but I mean that counts. So.
And I mean, my God, that movie's almost 4 hours long, so it's tough. But I think it would have been great. But there was no way to see it, so it's got to be a miss. Memoir of a Snail is one that a number of people mentioned. In terms of their top 5 movies of the year or whatever. So
I mentioned it first.
There you go.
To you.
Exactly. So that was definitely a miss. Heretic, I would say, the more I kind of think about it, like, that's probably one I should have found a way to sneak in there somewhere earlier. I'm going to put The Fall Guy on there too, because it was one that obviously you enjoyed quite a bit. There was an Ultraman movie this year, and I don't know whether you know this, but like Ultraman, I was a big Ultraman kid. I loved Ultraman as a kid.
You should have watched that then.
So that one, that Ultraman Rising, I probably really should have watched.
That would have been a fun pick too.
And then this,
seen that coming at all.
No, and then this one is probably the most self-indulgent one. But I mentioned X and Pearl earlier and how I kind of took them together the year that I watched them. Well, the final movie in that trilogy came out this year, Maxine, Maxxxine, and I didn't watch it, even though I loved those first 2 movies.
I watched it, and I don't even love those movies.
No, it was like I had it, and I was gonna watch it, and I didn't. That just feels like a big omission. And I mean, there were other ones like Venom and other stuff that I just didn't get around to seeing, but those were probably what I would say my big misses of the year were.
I don't want to ever like tell each other like what movies we watched because I like the surprise a lot more than. But at the same time, I kind of wish you weren't gonna watch. I kind of wish I knew that you weren't gonna watch Maxine because like I don't think I hate it. I just like didn't really have that much interest. But I knew you liked the first two, and I thought the first two were fine. And I probably would have just been like, okay, let's go do something else instead of watch Maxine. But whatever, that's how it goes sometimes. I try to guess what I think you might have seen, so then I can kind of talk about it more.
Right. Instead of watching Maxine, you could have watched one of these.
Yeah, I gotta be honest, because now this might change in future years, because as of now, I am planning to watch fewer movies.
Right.
And watch either more old movies or just do other things. But I still watch quite a few. I'll still watch quite a few movies, but I am planning on watching fewer. Whether that comes to pass, I don't know. So this list might be bigger. I have nothing here that I find too egregious, except for this first one, and this was just a weird one. There was a movie, a South Korean movie called Handsome Guys.
Okay.
It's a like South Korean like remake of Tucker and Dale versus Evil. I love Tucker and Dale versus Evil. So I wanted to see this. And it's on the internet, but there was like no English subs. And no way to get it. Like no way to get the movie. Like legally or illegally. There was like some AI subs that were just terrible. Like I started watching and I'm like, I can't. This is just a little too bad. But that was like the one movie that I actually really wanted to see. There's a movie called Bird, which could have been interesting, that dropped pretty late, whatever. Memoir of a Snail, I just was never in the mood to watch it, even though I'm sure it's great.
Yeah, and when you told me about it and I first looked at it, I'm like, oh, this animation style is right up my alley, and I definitely wanted to see it and just didn't get around to it.
Amelia Perez. Because I know that's getting a lot of love. Even before I knew that, it kind of seemed interesting. But to be honest, I think I just was kind of less diverse this year. And like I discovered Killzone and I started just playing that more. Right. So I didn't seek out as many movies. Inside Out 2, I guess it's on the list of shame because I feel like I should have watched. But I also thought it was going to be a bigger deal to you, so not so bad.
Right.
There was a movie called Rumors that was actually playing at Park Lane.
Okay.
So I didn't see it, but like it was on the internet. I could have watched it. And then the last one dropped pretty late. Not a movie I was super invested in seeing, but A Real Pain. And Jesse Eisenberg. I think he directed it.
I think he did. Yeah.
You know, I had it, could have watched it. Was kind of like meh, whatever. Because I get to a point where I'm like, Justin ain't gonna watch these, and if I'm not super invested in watching them myself, who really cares? So my list of shame is not egregious to me. Like I could live without pretty much all these. Like I would have liked to see Handsome Guys. I did have Sonic 3 on it, but then I ended up watching it. But
right. You know what's funny? No consensus in the top 30, but a consensus on the list of shame.
Yeah.
With Memoirs of a Snail. At least we got one.
Yeah, I feel less bad because like I thought you were gonna watch that. Yeah. Like we both love that animation style, but you were like, ooh.
Right. Hey, guess what?
It's over.
The awards are done. Ladies and gentlemen, that will draw to a close the 11th Lineal Justin and Tyler Movie Awards, the Movie Awards for 2024. Now I begin the editing process. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for anyone who will take the time to watch these videos, who contributed to the fans' choice, who shows an interest in the awards like through the year. And it's just like, hey, when are you guys doing that? Or when are you doing that? Or,
Sweet.
Or yeah.
I don't have that in my life. Right. People caring that much.
It's not, it's nice. Or the people that like know around this time of year that filming's about to start. Or that like will get excited when I'm like, we're filming the movie awards today. And they're like, oh, cool, awards time. And so like the people that it's part of their public consciousness that it's a big part of my life and our lives. So look, that's awesome, and thank you guys so much for that. And I guess we'll see you again in June or July, whenever we decide we're gonna do the mid-years. And yeah, we'll be back. We'll be back then. Until then, again, this brings to a close the 11th Lineal Justin and Tyler Movie Awards. Thank you so much for watching, and I guess we'll see you in the middle of the year.